Cybess, Chapter 4. The journey begins. They had arrived at the vast parking lot that opened to the Red Dot Trail. The coordinates were to the west of where they had been dropped off by taxi. The taxi driver said there was no way to park near there. "Are you sure we're not starting out too late, Bess? I mean, we could have waited till morning." Cy was toggling between sure then unsure he wanted to do this. He had a funny feeling in his gut he may not see his dorm again. He expressed this to DeMonte, who immediately told him to get a grip. "It says travel by sunshine, and the sun is still shining. The coordinates aren't that far off the path. We have the GPS box and taxis to come get us any time. So no, Cy, I don't think we came too late. The sun doesn't set for another 3 hours. "Man, try not to lose it. It's a simple hike," DeMonte said, laughing. "Fine, guys, but I got this weird feeling in my gut, so if something happens, don't say I didn't warn you. It's all I'm saying." Cy reluctantly grabbed his backpack and followed them towards the trail to the left. The start of their hike was full of laughter and joking and taking in the grandeur of nature all around them as they followed the GPS to its coordinates. Lorenzo was tired of listening to his uncle's rants. Ever since Uncle Larry found out he could construct these wooden secret keepers, he had been paying him to make him special ones. Something about finding a lost treasure he thought should be his, and making sure to rid the finder once they did the hard part. He didn't know the whole story. Lorenzo just knew he was making extra bank, and that's all that mattered to him. He needed an updated computer so he could start a business and sell his masterpieces. "Is that all you did with your big fancy college degree, bonehead? Learn how to lose things and mess things up? Yo, I'm freaking talking to you." His uncle threw a pen at him to get Lorenzo's attention. "No," Lorenzo replied. "No what?" "No, Uncle Larry. The first one you had me make for you got stolen because you weren't home and I was taking it to Papa Lorenzo. I figured you'd get it later. And you didn't ask for more until recently. I couldn't use this last one. There was a slight change in plans, is what your guy said. I had to come up with something different and quick." Lorenzo gets exhausted meeting with his uncle sometimes. He was quick to put him down at every turn. He wouldn't deal with his Uncle Larry if it weren't for this little side job and his Aunt Alyssa, God bless her. Lorenzo didn't know how she put up with his uncle all these years. Lawrence Lorenzo... Hold on. I got a name in there that I know how to pronounce, but it threw me just now. Let me start over. This is Alyssa coming into the room, by the way, to set it up. Lawrence Lorenzo Galaziani, you better not be giving my sweet nephew a hard time, Alyssa boldly disclaimed as she walked into the room. Lorenzo stood, giving his aunt a hug. He sat back down as she sashayed behind Larry, who was seated at his desk. Larry let out a low growl and gave her a side look as she kissed her husband on his cheek. Lorenzo never knew his Uncle Larry's middle name was the same as his and his grandfather's first name. "I didn't know your middle name was Lorenzo," he said with a sly smile, as if he now had a gold piece of information. "It's a family name, a good strong name. I just wanted to, carve my own way. So I switched my first and middle name legally when I got old enough. What do you care anyway? You're ruining our good family name by being a slack-off." At this, Alyssa pushed her husband's arm slightly. She knew what was too much and what was just enough to get his attention without being overbearing. "Quit saying things like that about him. He has tried so hard in his young years, got a degree, a good job, has many talents. You should be proud of him. And you're always talking about family and your good family name. When's the last time you had them all over so I could cook for everybody, huh?" We never see each other anymore. My good china is going to crumble to dust in the cabinet. Larry eyed his wife softly, which was some of the only times he showed any softness at all. God, he loved her cooking. She was a bit overstepping at times, he thought, but he loved her with everything that he had. Well, dear, you could make us some of your wonderful delights for dinner. He kissed her hand, and then they kissed. So is my wonderful nephew staying for dinner? Lorenzo didn't want to let his aunt down, but the thought of spending one more minute with his uncle made him cringe. Well, Aunt Alyssa, I sure would love to, but according to Uncle Larry, I've got another project to work on, plus a commute in the morning, so I better get at it. Thank you, though. I'll take you up on that sometime next week, huh? He went to hug her goodbye. Yeah, Lorenzo thought, when his uncle is out playing golf or something, he'd love to catch up with his aunt and family. Life sure does put you on an ever-turning wheel once you graduate college. Geesh, she was right. He barely got to see anybody anymore. Do you even know what we're looking for exactly, Bess? Cy was a bit irritated. He usually likes large crowded places. There's a lot to look at in populous places. Here, there's a bunch of trees. He would never say that to Bess, though. It would hurt her feelings, seeing as she knows all the trees by name. Another puzzle box, I'm guessing. This is the coordinate spot. She scratched her head, though. Although it will be difficult spotting a wooden box amongst the forest, everything is wood here. Well, people, let's get to looking. Only 2 more hours until the sun sets, and we don't want Mr. Paranoid to wet his Calvin Kleins or anything. I'll remember that, dude, Cy shot back, really not knowing what to say. They looked for some time, and Elora stood up. Just a thought, what if it's in a tree? They looked at all the surrounding trees with a daunting expression and some sighs. That cannot be what I think it is, DeMonte exclaimed as he reached inside a hollow hole in a tree and pulled out a brightly colored puzzle cube. Cy and Elora stared at it for a second. Some kid left it there, Cy thought this was silly now. They didn't even know what they were looking for. That'd have to be one pretty tall kid. I found it in this hole. Would you like to do the honors, Miss Elora? She hesitated. Cy slowly grinned and chuckled. Bess doesn't have a happy relationship with Rubik's Cubes, especially funny-shaped ones like that. Bess has issues with Rubik's. She scowled at Cy. However, this was true. The only puzzle that eludes her so far, the Rubik's. After her experience with Rubik's Cube, she avoids puzzles involving an abundance of mathematics and sticks with strategy or word puzzles. First of all, that's not funny shaped. It's a Merkaba star tetrahedron shape. Secondly, he's right. I've never solved one. Not ever. I can only get 2, maybe 3 sides. It irritates me to no end. Maybe that's not the puzzle box then, Bess. If it was meant for you, wouldn't your stalker know that? Quit calling them a stalker, Cy. This has been a fun trip so far. What? How did you... Cy stopped and pointed at DeMonte. They were staring in amazement at DeMonte, who had quickly put the Merkaba Rubik's back in its original state and had slid out one cube to reveal a note. Here, let me just get that for you. DeMonte walked over to them and shut both their jaws for them, to which Cy annoyingly pushed his arm away. Speed cubing! I was a champ in my high school, back in the days in the Bronx. I hear it's been talked about becoming a sport or a national competition soon. He was proudly holding up the solved puzzle cube. Elora smiled and ran over to read the note. Hugging DeMonte, she coyly took the note from him. She was becoming more and more impressed with her new friend. The note read, Best to camp here tonight. The first key is in the boulder's lair. After the barn field, 12 paces off the road left. Morning will safely take you there. There's a small map on the back, said Allura. Not much of a map. Cy miffed. Allura looked at him and then DeMonte and back to Cy. Jealous much? Cy rolled his eyes and gave her a glare. Well, yes, he was jealous. Bess was his friend. He was the one who had promised her adventures, not the weirdo that they don't know who is leaving her clues, or his college friend trying to steal her attention. Maybe he was being a bit childish. He kicked at a rock on the ground. He wished he could shake the terrible feeling that he might not sleep in his own bed again. Of course, he'd never been on this type of trek before. Cy had beach outdoor knowledge from his get-togethers in high school, but this was his first woodland experience. Maybe he was overreacting. Whoa! While he had been thinking, he didn't see Bess's quick movement of grabbing her backpack and heading down the road the wrong way. Bess! The parking lot is the other direction. It's not that far. By the looks of the map, it's in a small town. There's got to be a place to stay in that small town with real beds. She was feeling upbeat and confident and excited. Cy and DeMonte caught up with her. Bess, I believe you are a tad bit overzealous, don't you? Cy said in a softer tone, trying to coax her back to reality. The note even says best to camp here for the night. It wouldn't say that if we weren't safe to travel here at night. It would have said go now, but it does say that. Whoever is feeding you these clues wouldn't even travel at night here, so why are you? You mean we, Allura smiled. Why are we traveling now? Because it's not that far. Surely we can make it there either just at dark or right after and be safer in a building than in a tent. She pointed to her head to motion to him that she was using her noggin. Cy let out a long sigh. She had a point. One he didn't agree with, but a good point nonetheless. DeMonte was walking alongside them, apparently unaware of their conversation. He had the cube and was twisting it in and out of order as only a speed cuber can. Man, I'm out of practice. Can I have this, Allura? Sure. Neither of us have your mad skills with it, DeMonte, she said with a wink. Cy was going to ignore that. She was right, too. This should be fun. He had promised her adventures, and even though he didn't come up with this one, the least he could do is to be a good traveling companion. Allura walked over to one of the beautiful trees on the side of the road, tore off a young branch and chewed on it. Cy and DeMonte responded with a shocked and confused faces. So when did we start eating trees, Miss Allura? DeMonte boldly asked first, as they were both trying to figure out her strange behavior. Allura, being completely unaware of this strange look, simply stated, "It's birch." Okay. Cy could speak now, as he also never seen anyone eat a tree before. Allura stopped, realizing now that she had to explain this simple thing to them, as she assumed that everyone knew. Birch, guys. This is a birch tree. Birch beer is made from. The young branches are edible. Get one for yourselves. You'll see. It tastes just like birch beer. DeMonte cocked his head, and they make a beer that comes from a tree? No! Birch beer is an old-fashioned soda, DeMonte. You know, when soda was first invented and they had sarsaparilla, root beer, birch beer. My dad showed me one on the woods when my girls that you can eat these branches, rather chew on them. Don't swallow the wood. Here, try it. They both took a young branch and started chewing. It's good. Kind of minty and sweet at the same time, they both exclaimed, still baffled that they were chewing on tree branches. The three of them continued down the road. Larry's office had a tense feeling in the air, even with all the intricate wooden furniture and trim and the many priceless items of decor. They didn't stay there, Larry heard on the other line of the phone as the 2 of his men were there with him in his office. What? Did that numbskull not put the note in? The note specifically read, "Camp there for the night." Nah, boss, I saw the note. It was in there. I think they're probably going to be the first big one. You want me to meet them there? Ah, I make the decisions, not you. Sorry, boss. Go get a room near there, then go there. But don't get near the boulder. The old story says there's protection over these 2 keys, and I can't afford to lose more guys. I lost too many on that last job last year with Don Paulo. Thank God I don't owe that guy anything else. Done with that now. That's why we're having them to do the dirty work, and we'll take over after we both keys and get rid of them. She has the highest comprehension skills, tested like you've never seen. She'd run circles around you buffoons. I can't get it in a quarter of a time now than if we'd have done this alone. That one can figure anything out, she can. So, go there? Yes, go there. Ugh. Larry hung up the phone in disgust. At what he wasn't sure he should be happy he was about to be an even wealthier man. You twos go for backup. They're on their way to get the first part of the key. Don't do anything to them until the second half. You hear me? He turned his back to look out the long window as the 2 men got up and left the room. They knew not to ask questions. Larry stood there for a brief moment. Then he went to the phone on his desk. Lorenzo was locking the door to his grandfather's old shop, his hands full of tools and fine wood scraps. He had inherited the building and lived in an apartment above the shop. On his way to climb the outdoor stairs to his apartment, his large flip phone rang. He fumbled, trying not to drop anything, to answer it. "Yeah?" Lorenzo said in a flat tone when he saw the number that was calling him. "You got the one ready with the directions to the second key yet?" "They got the next puzzle box and they're on the way, those kids. They didn't want to wait. So it's got to be ready sooner. They left before plan." This was not the news Lorenzo wanted to hear. "I thought no one traveled at night through there. Some old folklore, but still doesn't explain all the missing people. Are they walking?" "Who cares? And that's not answering my question, Lorenzo. Do you have it ready or not?" Lorenzo said in a hesitated tone, looking down at the fine wood pieces in his arms. Does not sound good, Lorenzo. I'm freaking paying you for this." "It's almost done. It'll be ready." "Good thing," Larry replied flatly and hung up. Lorenzo let out a sigh as he finished climbing the stairs and entered his apartment. An all-nighter, as he had not started yet. He just got done designing this one on paper. Why would those people travel at night there? He didn't know who the patsies were. Larry told him not to get involved on that end. You have one job, just do that job. That's all you have to concern yourself with. We need those silly puzzles that you make to hook 'em in. He remembered his uncle saying to him. Lorenzo flipped on the work desk light. There was a photo on his desk that had the hazel-eyed girl in it. He had seen her near a park the year before while playing baseball with his buddy's work team. He pulled his flip phone out and snapped a picture real quick because he wasn't sure. When he had printed it, he saw that it actually was her and decided to keep it. It was a nice photo anyway, people happily having fun in the park. Time to get to work. He had spent all night finally crafting together one of his masterpieces. And that is the end of chapter 4. And then we'll see what lurks above in chapter 5.